First off, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. Putting this video up a few days before. Um, Kind of a small compilation. I haven't been putting. I've been very busy with some things, so I wanted to put something up so that people could see just kind of some status, things like that. It's been a very eventful couple of weeks. Bays 1, Bay 2, and Bay 4 are open. Bay 3, hoses, everything, all the plumbing is done. The wiring to the bay door is done. I've got to figure out with what I have. I've got a motor, and I've got 5 Cat 310 pumps and a rebuild kit. And I need to go through those 5, and basically at this point I've picked the good ones out of the bunch, and I need to put together one good one with parts from 5. I've got some pulleys that are rusted that need to be cleaned up, and a couple of good pump blocks. Think of it like an engine, and a couple of good valve bodies and heads. We're getting snowflakes here. I'm in my house in Maryland. So I'm going to pull that together and get everything going. Let's see. Surprisingly, Bay 2 has started taking the majority of the business. Wouldn't have expected. And that's the one I've been struggling with some issues with the pump pressure on. And it's been kind of a struggle in general. So the first thing that happened with that is I've been dealing with a lot of pressure issues. So I thought, well, that pump's weak. I rebuilt the pump, put new seals in it, new valves, everything else. I'm like, it's probably just the end of its life. It's not what they call washed out, which is where it's grooved, but it was not in the best shape. So I put everything together and got a belt, got a good motor, put it all on there, and I'm like, I'll deal with it as it comes. And it was serviceable, but it wasn't what I wanted. Well, I cranked the regulator up on that thing as far as it would go, and I'm like, just let it run wide open. And I don't have a pressure gauge on that one. It was one of the things that was broken that I need to get a couple of. So fast forward to earlier this week. I had to go over midweek. There was a situation. My insurance needed to inspect the electrical panel for an audit or something. I need to go over. So I went over midday to clean some things up because everything was a mess. Where I put the heat tape up in the troughs, and I've been working on the weep system, and I've been waiting on check valves for that. That's been a whole disaster. I got things going as good as I could, but it wasn't serviceable yet. I put in a Dixmoor DX1000 Weep Miser, which is the small box. I think I talked about it in some of the videos, that basically cycles water on and off as you get closer to freezing. It sends just city water down the lines to keep the high pressure lines from freezing. And there's a sensor that goes outside, and as you get, I think it starts at 35, it'll send like 5 seconds of water every minute, or, until eventually, when it's like 15 degrees out, it just constantly pushes water down the line. But I had to build this thing out with a manifold, a couple of manifolds I had to make, and not really happy with what I did is serviceable. I'm not sure as far as the length of time before I need to do some work, but it also wasn't that costly, mainly because I have anodized aluminum manifold blocks with brass fittings going into them, and if you know much about metals together, mixing metals, it's a recipe for corrosion, and it actually will start pitting the aluminum and things like that. But I'm like, it'll get me through the winter, and I'll figure out something better, particularly since this is a homebrew setup that I did. I think it works pretty well. I'm an engineer, but it's not exactly amazing. It'll get the job done, we hope. We'll see. If not, it'll make for great content. So let's fast forward. I had to go over for the insurance inspection, clean things up, and the person never showed. So I worked on everything as much as I could, and was like, I need some check valves, so that when the wheat miser is running, number one, so that the wheat miser isn't sending city cold water back into the hot water tank when it's running. Not the end of the world, because it's not running that much, and we're not going to get that cold for the next few weeks, although there are 3 days next week where it'll be in the 20s coming up. The bigger issue is you have to put check valves to keep the high pressure water from the pumps from backfeeding into the manifold and basically sending high pressure water and soap or whatever back into your city water supply. There's a lot of little nuances. I'm jumping all around here. So, whatever Wednesday, and one of the things I was dealing with was trying to, I put together manifold blocks. There's a video I'll cut together on here where I played my favorite game of, why is the floor wet? When I walk in, and it's like, what's leaking now? And not an obvious leak, so I'm like, all right, if their floor is wet, you don't see water dripping, it's probably something high pressure, so let's go and turn each bay on and see what's spraying. And sure enough, I had a hose that was where the drop from the ceiling comes down, which is the old hose going to the bay that eventually I'm going to replace these, but for now, what I have is a high pressure coupler and my line, my new hose going to it. And it wasn't screwed together all the way. Well, it was, but these, essentially, they're repair kits that Clean-Rite makes where you screw on a metal fitting to your hose, and then you screw another one in that's tapered, and the tighter you screw it, basically, it almost makes a hydraulic type of connection, hydraulic hose type of connection, where the hose is clamped between two pieces of metal, and it really can't blow apart. You do two of these, and then there's a swivel where they go together. Well, it was leaking. So here's some great content. I've been playing this game today called Why Is My Floor Wet? In the pump room. It's my favorite car wash game. Kidding. It's actually really annoying, but, part of the business. Pardon the mess. I've been cutting hoses out here. So, the reason why my floor is wet is because I have this dude spraying hot water everywhere. You can see it's over there. It's over there. Everything is soaked. It's running down. It's a hose coming apart. Yay. That was fairly simple. I just had to crank down on some things. Turned the pump back on and was going out to check things in bay 2, and all of a sudden, before I even left the room, the pump got really quiet. And when a pump goes quiet all of a sudden, typically what that is either something failed in the pump, or it, you remember these pumps make pressure, not volume. So they're not pushing a ton of water, but what happens is it goes quiet, and it's like, well, that usually means it's not having to work. So I go out into the bay. I don't have to go out in the bay. I open the door and stick my head out, and I see steam. Mind you, our water is 120 degrees. I see steam rolling out of the bay. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? So I go down there, and the boom, the high-pressure boom in the middle of the ceiling that spins, the hose where the trigger gun is just laying on the ground, and it's just shooting water out. All right, so another vertical video. This was going to be short, but I'm probably going to stitch it together. So let's see if we got a leak in here. If we do, it is mild, and I'm not messing with it. I'm going to have to choke this off a little bit here. You make the pump work a little bit. It makes your changeover between soap, wax, etc. go faster because I'm having an issue of getting things to change over quickly. So, a little update on where we're at. I came out here a minute ago and there was steam rolling out of the bay when I was coming to check and see how things were going after the change I just made in there to fix the other leak I showed you. And the line had blown off the end of the boom and was spraying. Okay, good. That's wax. Let's change over to high pressure soap, which we should see go orange in a minute.
But yeah, it was spraying everywhere, making a huge mess. And a brand new, mind you, this bay's only been open a week. A brand new swivel. There we are. We just saw the change over to orange cream. Now let's check desalt. Now we should see it go blue here in a minute. A brand new swivel just exploded. I mean, it literally blew apart and made a giant mess. So we're watching it here. We'll see it go. There we go. Here comes the color change. And if you watch the phone, you'll see it go kind of green. And there's our blue. So we've got all three high pressure options working again. Good. Last thing is, let's see the steam in here. It's kind of crazy how it makes a fog and hangs out. Last thing is, I'm going to add another swivel right here because this is a brand new clean right hose, 6-foot bay hose. And it's got a swivel built into it. And it swivels. But as soon as you put it under pressure, it doesn't swivel. Seems like a problem. I have another fix, another clean right part. Personally, I think their hoses should maybe swivel under pressure like they're supposed to, and their swivels shouldn't disintegrate and explode, showering parts all over my bay. Think if a person's car had been in here.
Turn everything off, and the swivel on there, and that boom, I had to, mind you, these are all the original ones. They're very heavy duty. They're really heavier than a lot of what you can find today. I don't love them. But they, they're going to get the job done for now. Partly because nobody knows who makes them. I can't get parts for them. So, everything I've had to do, I've had to fabricate. I've had to put wheels on them. Well, they have wheels, but the wheel is supposed to carry the weight if a spring fails. Well, you can't find those springs anywhere. So the wheel's carrying the weight. It's basically a pivot. The wheel sits at the back, the edge of the boom is here, and it sits and it puts the pressure. Ideally, they're supposed to float on a spring, so they move very quickly. A couple of them do. A couple of them drag because they're on that wheel. So, I digress. I had to replace the hose that runs from the ceiling down the arm of the boom to the end of the boom. And I did that. And in the process of doing that, I used a new swivel and everything else. Well, that swivel exploded. I mean, it blew apart. There was brass. It shattered. Why would that fail in that manner? So I fixed it, checked everything else out. Things seemed to be pretty good. I left and I came back to Maryland. This was Tuesday night? Because I went over Tuesday morning. I think it was Tuesday. I went over at like 5 a.m. The day before. And I was there, went over 5 a.m. Monday and then Tuesday, and because I had to work my day job. So I'm coming back, I come home and everything seems fine because I also had to install my diesel heater. I have heat that actually will be effective. So I have good heat in the pump room because it's cold in there, and it's. I'm gonna call it a backup and a stopgap. But I still want to do a mini split, heat pump, air conditioning, so it's tolerable when I'm in there in the summer, and it's got some solid, smart heat that I can manage 2 hours away during the winter. Because right now I've had to make, I'll put a picture in here. It's actually kind of hilarious, remote control situation for my diesel heater. But it's a whole other thing to cover here. So I started looking at the weather and saw that we're going to have more 20s. I'm like, I've got to get this weep system going because I had a freeze up 3 weeks ago, a month ago. I got a 1-star Google review. Ironically, this morning I checked, and that guy actually went back and changed his 1-star review into a 5-star and gave me really good comments. So I'm like, I'm like, okay, but again, it shows good customer service. I responded fast. I said, hey, we got a problem. I'm going to go over and take a look at it. Did go over, rushed over there 2.5 hours over to find that everything was frozen up. Worked on mitigating that, gave them a refund. I mean, I'm very apologetic. It's, part of the issue with self-service car washes is, I've learned, and again, I'm new at this, but I've done a lot of reading, and those who know me personally know that I'm insanely type A, and I do a ton of research for anything. I'm the person who literally reads repair manuals and car owners manuals and things like that for fun. So, I'm, again, engineered to a core. So, I got that review and everything, bouncing around here a lot. The coffee is not working yet. I need to forgive me, but so I had to get this weep system going, and the damn check valves I needed, which are 3,000 psi, 3/8 inch male to female check valve, that I ordered from one of my suppliers, not Clean Right, another supplier I use that did some of my stainless work, some of my tanks and everything. Doltmeyer sales. They're good. They're a little slower than Clean Right. They were back ordered. I've got to get this thing going before I leave for 2 weeks to go home for the holidays. So I was able to get some 2,000 psi. Sorry if you hear that. My dog is making his bed. Some 2,000 psi check valves and nipples and things like that, and locally at Granger. And I picked them up yesterday morning and zipped over to the car wash. I had taken some meetings in the car on the way over. I was able to kind of work from the road for my day job, which made it kind of nice because I did what I needed to in the morning, my deliverable stuff. So I get over there, and the insurance person showed up. She was actually an hour late. She was supposed to be there before I was. The Jiffy Lube owner was going to let her into the space for me. And, well, not for me, but let her into the space. They have keys. And I get there, and she's like, hi, I'm here. And I was like, oh, okay. We open the door, and I see water all over the floor in the pump room. I'm like, what in the name of God? And the panel's open, because I wasn't expecting her to be there. I've got, wires hanging out of the ceiling that are extension cords that are running into the trough because I've got, the temporary heat tape and stuff up there right now while I'm figuring that situation out. I'm going to have to put outlets up in the ceiling. It's not a big deal, but it's just I don't have time to do it right now. And everything is safe. It's really, completely fine, and it's all on GFCIs and everything else, and remote controlled. So I realize that the output hose off of pump for Bay 2 is laying on the ground, and there's just water, I won't say dribbling out. I mean, there's a stream of water coming out because, mind you, everything I have is gravity fed. An advantage of gravity feed using that tank versus plumbing off of the city is that since I don't have, 60, 80, 100 psi coming into the pump, if I have a failure on the downstream side of the pump, I'm only going to lose water at whatever the pressure from the gravity, is. So, a couple psi, if that. I mean, it's not a lot, but it still was enough that it leaked. I lost about 80 gallons of water. My water heater has a flow meter, and I actually get it through the app, so usage metrics. So I was able to go and see, what did this cost me? Because the other thing is, as the water drops, has to fill up, the water heater is going to fire up, so it's going to cost gas, water, and everything, and cost of doing business. So I very quickly turned the water valve off for that, got through the insurance stuff, started looking and realized that hose, and they're metal braided hoses, it was just slipping off. I'm going to have to pick a better kind of hose barb for these. There are ones that are called push lock that you actually don't even need to use hose clamps on, and I've got a couple of those that are part of the old setup that I've just left. And I was actually talking to Mike, the Jiffy Lube owner, who they ran the wash for years using those, and he said, yeah, once you learn to trust them. So a little more expensive, but I think I'm going to go through and swap everything, and just for peace of mind. Because right now I'm just using brass 3/8 clean right. I get them in bulk from them, and hose clamps, and I hate hose clamps. Let me just be clear. I've broken so many hose clamps. I've been cut by them. I've stripped them. I'm done. So, again, learning this business as I go. Some things I take from learning this one when I start the next one, and the one after that, or I'm going to end up doing, I'll know going into those. So, I get everything plugged up. I turn the pump on, and it blows the water line off again. Like, what in the hell's going on? So I put new hose clamps. Well, I get a angle grinder and cut off the hose. You have to use an angle grinder because these hoses are metal braided internally. Like, you can't just cut it with scissors, cut it with a saw. Like, literally sparks are flying. It's actually kind of hilarious. It reminds me, my father was a machinist, fabricator. Growing up, I was terrified whenever I'd see him with an angle grinder and sparks flying and everything else. And now I'm like, oh yeah, get right in there with it. So, cut the hose, put it back on, turn it on again. In the meantime, after I got this going, I had put the check valves on, plumbed everything up for the weep, and I'm like, I need to test that. The hose blows off of the manifold where the weep's going into. And I'm like, well, something is going on here at this point. It dawns on me, when I start looking at it, I had cranked the pressure up on that little pump. So I quickly went over and swapped the hoses between another bay and that one. And it would blow the paint off your car if you were using it. I'm like, oh, that pump is actually very healthy. Again, I don't have a pressure gauge on it. I need to get one. So, good thing to learn there. I'm like, all right, so what this is telling me is I have an obstruction somewhere in the line between the pump room and the bay. And I've blown all this out before. So what I probably have is a flake of rust or something that has broken out, or a piece of an old pump or something, like an old valve that's shot through the line and plugged up somewhere. So I'm going to have to pull things apart and clean it. And unfortunately, there are several places where this line over the years has those connectors where it's been reconnected, so it could be hung up in there. So, project. But I put Bay 2 back together, dialed the pressure way back. It's basically performing the same that it was. It's just not blowing up lines in the pump room. Knock on wood. So, yeah. So, I got all that going, got the weep system on, and have decent pressure for the weep. I actually have it dialed up. I have a 3/4 inch water line coming into this valve. It's actually a 1.5 down to a 3/4 going to a half, just because of the way I had to put it in there. I have the valve barely cracked open, and it gives more than enough water. Because the other thing with the weep is you don't want people sitting there rinsing their car with the low pressure coming out of the weep, because it's not the intent. And, somebody's in your bay using your stuff without putting money in the coin box, you're not making any money. I mean, so, yeah. That all was working yesterday when I left, so we're going to see how it goes. We've got 3 days of 24, 25, 26 degree lows coming up. So, to help mitigate freeze-ups, I have weep going for the high-pressure lines. I have thermostatically controlled heat tape, like what they use on mobile homes or a lot of homes. We have it at our house at the beach, on the lines, bundled in with the low-pressure lines going out to the bays. In the pump room, I have a diesel heater. I'll probably put a picture here. I have a diesel heater that is actually connected up. The exhaust runs through the wall. And I had header wrap on it, which smells terrible and smokes as it's forming when it gets really hot, because that exhaust pipe gets like 300, 400 degrees. But then I thought, you know what? I'm going to take that off. Nobody's in here but me. There's nothing combustible around it, and it's free heat. So basically it runs through a concrete block wall into a what's meant to be a stainless steel boat through hole, and I have cocked at a slight angle for two reasons. Number one, when I was drilling through and jackhammering through this block wall, and it's not cinder block at that level, it's cinder block like halfway up, but at the lower level there's some sort of stone, concrete stone that's kind of rough faced with rebar in it, and I hit rebar. So I jackhammered around the rebar. Thankfully it's not the tension kind, it's just old school metal rebar. But I jackhammered around it, so the pipe has to go at an angle, but it actually worked out well because it aims it away from my gas tanks and my electrical and everything outside. So I just put concrete, just like what I did around the coin receiver, or the bill exchanger out front. It's concreted in, so it actually looks good, and it looks like it's supposed to. It's angled. It looks a little weird, but when you realize and then you see, okay, it's not just that it's a crap job. It's, so, and it'll keep vermin and things like that from going back in. So that little diesel heater, it's an 8 kilowatt. It puts out some good heat, and it actually doesn't use that much fuel. So unfortunately, I'm waiting on something I bought on eBay, which is a standpipe. I'm actually going to build my own fuel tank for it, where I can have, I'm probably going to keep 7.5 gallons or 10 gallons of diesel, depending on, because what I'm actually going to reuse are the chemical bottles that my soaps come in. They're oil rated. They're completely fine. And if you know much about diesel, you can take a match, or you can take a lighter and put it in diesel. Diesel is very stable. It's very safe. Diesel does not burn unless it is pressurized and atomized, and it's a mist. It's a fine spray. Like it's very stable. That's why it's, boat users prefer it. It also doesn't produce as much CO2. So CO2, carbon dioxide, whatever. CO, yeah, much CO. See, all right, coffee isn't working. But at any rate, it doesn't produce as much. I still have a monitor, a carbon monoxide monitor in the room, but it is safer. And these little heaters are a expired. It's a Chinese one. That's an expired German patent. Webasto made. God, 50 years ago, you gave them stock on Mercedes vehicles in Europe, and they're in a lot of buses, RVs, etc. Sure, you've seen them all over. If you've done any research, they're all over the internet right now, and so it's safe. And if it were to run out of fuel, it'll just cleanly turn itself off. So I'm gonna build a storage apparatus where I can have 7.5, 10 gallons of diesel in there, and I can run it if I need to. Right now it's only got 1.5 gallon tank on it. So since I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks, I can't run it the whole time. What I'm going to do, or what I did, is it came with the keychain remote control, because it's meant to be installed in a car if you want. I put it in a small plastic craft box, and I bought 2 switch bots. These little boxes that are internet connected. Well, they're Bluetooth, and I bought the hub so you can do it via the internet. And I 3M VHB taped them onto sections of starboard inside the box, which starboard's like a plastic plywood. It's actually the old Jiffy Car Wash letters that I kept all of the straight ones, so the J-I-F-F, I kept all this, the ones that have straight sections, and I've been cutting them up and using them for various things. Because they're 1/2 inch thick, they're really, really good. They don't rot, they don't mold, they don't, and you can cut it with a multi-tool, and it's PVC, basically. So I have this in this craft box with the lid closed, holding it together, and it's all taped, or it's all VHB taped down, and I have one for on and one for off, and I literally can go into the app and hit heater on, and a little arm comes out and pushes the on button on the remote control, and then the heater will come on, vice versa for off. So I'm editing this video right now. I'm doing a little bit of a break here, because something that just came up. So I've had a couple customers today. I've got a work van that pulled in, and he spent a little bit of money. was in bay 4. Just doing a quick wash. Looks like, and right now I've got somebody in bay 2 and a Mustang Mach EV, and I've got a Jag XK8 in bay 1. And because I've got my camera set up here because I watch and keep things going. And the Jag, the guy pulls in, older gentleman, and it's silver. It's a nice looking convertible. They're 90s, I think late 90s, mid 90s. But I'm a Mercedes guy, not a Jag guy. I took a picture and sent to my buddy who's a big Top Gear fan. I'm like, Jag, and put a Jeremy Clarkson, gif with it. But guy rolls in and goes over to the coin box to see him reading, see him put his card in. Great. He's walked around looking, nothing's going on. He goes back, he turns it on to high pressure. Or turns on, I guess. He turns on something that would turn on high pressure. And then he proceeds to start spraying the car, but I'm realizing, that doesn't look like he's got much pressure. And I realize he's not squeezing the trigger. Remember, I have weep guns, so my guns always can pass a small amount of water, not at high pressure because they're used to the whole weep system I've been talking about in here. But when you first turn it on, they make these signs that say squeeze trigger for high pressure. And I've always thought, I don't need those. I don't want to plaster the bays with signage. I've been to car washes where it's like, oh my god, it's like a 90s webpage with ads, but it's, all these pictures, and I'm trying to do metal signs and be kind of more minimalist, but give people what they need. I think I need to get some of those signs, or at least get some made that saying squeeze trigger for high pressure, because the problem is, and I'm not criticizing the guy, because maybe that's his intent, and right now I'm watching him dry it off with a chamois. I mean, go, you take care of your car, But my concern that comes up with this is I don't want someone coming back and giving me a bad review and saying, oh, your pressure is terrible, 1 and 2 star, whatever, and don't come here, blah, 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 all these things you can get on Google, because it ticks me off. Number one, it's not good, and it's not fair to me, because I've got 1500 psi plus to the bays, especially bay 2 if it's blowing hoses up, but regardless. I'm not criticizing, because, like I said, maybe that was the intent, or maybe people don't realize, and something that to me is common sense, squeeze the trigger, may not be to somebody else. We all have different walks of life, different technical aptitudes, things like that. It's fine. But I've seen this 2 or 3 times now that it's making me like, okay, I need to get those signs. Again, and because I want people to have the optimal experience, I also don't want them to come back and say, hey, this place sucks, which I've had 1 or 2 of those, and I don't have a big enough volume of business right now that I can't be like, oh yeah, that was you in the bay at 516. And it puts me in this position as a business owner to be like, well, take it on the chin and let the 5 stars override the 1s. Or I can also, and if you know me, and for the people who know me in life, I'll speak up. And and the thing is that it puts me in a position as a business owner to want to respond and be like, squeeze the trigger. So, kind of a little segue here for this. I'm going to get back to that, and I'm just going to inject this in the video where it's at right now in my editing timeline, because I think it's kind of funny and topical, given everything, but customers, I don't care what they do. Customers are going to be customers, except for the guy who keeps literally leaving horse shit in bay 4. Please scrape it off at the farm before you bring your truck through, because I'm tired of scooping it. But he pays good money, so you know what? If that's what he wants to do, I'll go and scoop horse shit all day long. Now, that being said, it would be nice to not have to do that and clean my pits out, because let me tell you, it's vile when it sits in a bay and a pit, and I have to go dump the sand trap or the dirt trap out, and it's just full of manure. But at any rate, said it again, whatever, eventually I'm going to take a post-it note here. I'm going to get back to this video. I just wanted to put this little interjection in. I could automate this all through, like, if this then that, or something like that, to where I could say, hey, if I have a temperature sensor in there as well from Govee. If temperature sensor is below 40, then push heater on for 1 hour or whatever. I might tinker with that over the holidays. I just really am gonna have to keep an eye on it manually and be able to turn it on and off myself. But I needed to be able to do that for right now, since I've got to get through those 3 days. The other time I don't need the heat, but it's those 3 days. It's going to be really critical to keep that room at, about freezing at least. So that's where we're at. I left there yesterday. Everything was working. I'm watching. Oh, my Bay 5 died again. Okay. I don't have anybody in there. I've had one customer today so far. In Bay 1, they came through. I had to clean the bays yesterday too. Somebody came in and spent $40. Okay, I'm fine with that, but I had $40 worth of mud and grit to clean out of a bay. So, yeah, that was fun. Let's see. Oh, the other thing is I have all 4 vacuums working now. I had to replace a micro switch and a coin acceptor on vacuum 1, which is the one that had the fire and had everything else. And I realized that the micro switch had gone bad on that one. I bought the exact replacement part from CleanRight for the model that I have, and it didn't fit. So it's like, great. Had to kind of fabricate the little arm for it. Just this little piece of wire. It's surprisingly stiff, but you had to bend it. And the problem I had is where I had it at, quarters were hitting it and sticking on it. It's like, no, we can't do that. So I got that fixed. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Coastal Auto Spas, 3 of the 5 bays are up and running. 4 of the 4 vacuums are up and running, and it is going to have to need some care and feeding for the next 11 days, 12 days. And I have to say, I'm not nervous. A little bit worried, but only because this will be the longest period where it's been an operating business without any support. Worst case scenario, I can call, Jiffy Lube. They have the key, and if something goes wrong, my exit plan for this, which I hate, is going to be someone go in, flip off all the 3-phase breakers to all the bays, flip off all the 115 volt, the single phase breakers to all the bays. Well, 120. Okay, 117.2 RMS, but at any rate, flip off all the breakers and then turn off the water main. And, I'm going to lose revenue, but it's better than having something be damaged or, someone's car. So, I don't want to screw any customers. So that's where we're at. Kind of a random video, also from a weird venue. A lot of rambling here. I'm going to do some cuts in and out. Man, why did this thing lock again? Some random cuts in and out of some various videos, things like that. It's been a little longer than I expected it to. They usually do, because I can talk a blue streak. But wanted to give an update of where we're at. I'm going to go furiously finish my work day and wrap gifts, because I've got 30 things to wrap still, and we have to pack and load up, and I have to get the dog ready, because we are leaving at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning to go to family in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. So we were there for Thanksgiving for a short jaunt. It's a little longer when we do it every year. It's the Midwest Gauntlet, I refer to it. It's a 1,200 mile in 10 days or 8 days or however many days it is, but it's good. We get to see family, get to visit. I don't mind the road trip for portions of it. However, I will say the section that I have to drive of, I think it's 65, between Lexington, Kentucky and Louisville, Kentucky, is the most maddening stretch of road I have ever driven in my entire life. And I've got over 1 million miles under my belt, if you want to calculate all the miles and all the vehicles I've owned, driven, and everything for work. I used to be a bus driver. And that one section in Kentucky, y'all need to stay out of the left lane if you're not going to move. That's all all I'm going to say. With that, happy holidays. We'll see you in the new year.